Let's go!
Let's talk about a couple more things, just to solidify where my stance is on MK1. I've obviously been playing MK1 off and on for ever since it came out, but I've gone through some pretty big gaps in between because the DLC characters weren't really, you know, jiving for me. But as soon as Takeda came out, boy, this is amazing. Like, oh my god. And then other characters that have come out since then are really fun. I think Ghostface is amazing. So several elements in MK1 didn't hit for me at the start in the roster, specifically in choosing a character. I just did not jive with any character in the game, and I was sort of waiting for that. But still, even that being said, I played the game more in those first 3 months than I had played almost MK11 in its entirety, dude. Because it was kind of a fun game to play. It had clearly some issues with like assist calling and the way it felt and input problems and all that stuff, but at least it was like something I even wanted to put my time into and enjoy myself, right? Outside of only checking out like DLC and not playing it at all outside of that. My dude, I've played like Steve and Kenny on their streams when they're streaming. I see them streaming MK. I'll jump on and play matches with them. I don't do that for a ton of games, man. I really don't. MK1 is one of those games that I'm like, yeah, I just want to play this right now. I just want to jam on some MK1, sure. That wasn't the case for Injustice 2. That wasn't the case for MK11. It was not, at least for me. So there's some gameplay stuff in the game that is pretty fun. However, it was always held down by, I'd argue, the worst feeling NRS game out there. A game with some cool ideas, but not great execution. The cameo system, I like the idea for it. And then eventually how you do it, not good. Do not like. It's gotten better, but not good, do not like. The only way I can really compare this to other games, I think I literally have to bring up MK11. So MK11, and I'll give you guys a visual example. We did this before. MK11 introduced the cameo system, right? Literally had, in some modes, the ability for you to call in other characters and for them to do exclusive moves. So it's like tied to the analog stick, the right analog stick, up, down, left, right would do different things. Bam, character comes in and does something, but there was no posing. There was no awkward, long animation that the characters effectively had to take in order to do it. MK1 was designed with different constraints. Clearly, we don't want that overall, right? You just don't want a whole game that is effectively poseless, what they called ambush cameos, the entire time. We don't want that. That game would be absolutely effed up. But I think the fact that the game at a core level, at an early design state, probably didn't get the time for them to figure out how they wanted to create a game that had assists and stuff like that is weird to me, because they feel so weird to use. They feel like worse versions of almost like MVC1 assists. And if I go back and think of MVC1, yeah, I love that game. But dude, if you could just call MVC1 assists willy-nilly and they have like a small recovery and you can bring them back, that game would be amazing. That game would be so much better. You wouldn't just be Colossus all the time, but it would be a significantly better game if you didn't have to do the pose and then call a character in. Right off the bat, the game is given a design constraint of like these really specific cameos and how you call them and what you do with them, and they get more interesting over time, like the Movados and stuff like that. They have to be in juggling or something. Cool idea, but really it's like, no, this is not it. Like you had it working in a correct way in Mortal Kombat 11. Like we had it in a way that felt good. And I really don't understand like why the whole game wasn't sort of designed around that and expanded. It felt like it was designed around this and then contracted. And we're just gonna make it worse. Right from the get-go, you have a game that was effectively designed to be this new, interesting, different thing that is not gonna make casuals interested in your game, is only going to be effectively sort of for the super hardcore gameplay people. But even for the super hardcore gameplay people, you have a game that feels worse than MK11. So there's what my biggest criticism is. Like, you have a very fun game that could have been here. MK1 could have been a very fun game, but it was always held back by like all these things. And I'm not even talking about content, right? I'm talking from a general gameplay standpoint of how the game works. I am not even addressing the fact that, yes, I jump into MK1 and there's a really fun character or a fun team, like with Cameo. Yeah, I want to go do this to some people. And then I relegate myself to playing MK1 online. And I'm reminded every single time how awful it is. And I don't just mean player behavior. I don't just mean like community thing. I just mean that is like icing on the cake of shittiness. where it's like, oh, now I gotta deal with this horrible matchmaking that lets me look at this menu. I'd argue NRS players or people that have been playing MK1 consistently and have played this shit since it came out, my dudes, you have seen that opening default stage menu thing where it says like connecting to matchmaking. Your ass has been looking at that for like a year. You have spent days of your life with that menu open looking for ranked matches and doing nothing else. Nothing. Hopefully you're making sandwiches and shit. The 2023-2024 version of get ready for the next battle, you're stuck there. And you just have to look at that shit, and you don't get to, there's no matchmaking during this, there's no matchmaking during that, you cannot train, you can't do any of that shit, dude. It's nuts. So I get in, and I play a game where the matchmaking takes forever, and I just want to play people. I spend the majority of my time, I swear to God, sitting at that goddamn menu and not playing people. And I'm like, this is not the way fighting games work, man. Like, it has always been something where it's like, yeah, I love these characters. They are really fun. I'm working beyond the obvious control issues that the game sort of has, that you got to acclimate to and get used to. I work beyond that because I'm really enjoying how the characters work and how the game effectively is. I like it. But even when I think of like, man, do I want to play Takeda in that? And it's like, oh, you know what? I do not. I just want to go back to the MK1, the same relationship I had with MK11. What was my relationship with MK11? I almost never played ranked. I played room matches that allowed people to choose moves and stuff, because in the player matches, you didn't have to choose the variations. You can just freely choose variations, which they eventually did anyway. I did that for the entirety of the game. So I was like, sick! I'm just gonna do that instead. And I am not kidding you. You still cannot do that in MK1. I cannot open a lobby and just have people join it. Like, it is specifically by invite only. It is specifically by, like, accommodation. You have to go find the person, get them, put them in. There is so much, like, busy work I have to do, especially if, you know, all of our friends lists are full and shit. I have to effectively go, who wants to join? And I have to, like, look up their names and, like, add them. That wasn't that way before, dude. So there's no, like, traditional rooms. There's no way for you just to, like, hey, I just want to fight my chat for a while. The same way I always played MK11 online. Oh, I can't do that. And guess what happens? My desire to learn and play that character goes down and down and down. The investment I have to put in, you have to play so many of these fucking matches. Like, I played for like a couple days straight and I got to like Demigod or something like that. And I was like, do I want to keep doing this? It's like, oh my God, dude, I don't know if I do. I don't know if I do. That has always been an issue for me. I've had that relationship historically with other fighting games, like back in the day, Guilty Gear, like Xrd, right? Just Xrd in general. Game ran like butt online overall before it got fixed. And like the ranked matchmaking was almost non-existent, and you had to like go into rooms and get people in those rooms. But even if I got people into like the lobby rooms, they wouldn't work. So it was like, well, shit, every single time I try to do this, there's some weird problem. And now I have to specifically get into a room and invite these people and yada, yada, yada. So there was always something in the way of me just like playing the game. If there's one thing I have to give credit for Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, I have spent so much time in those games, hundreds of hours just in ranked. And the only reason I've been able to play that many hours in ranked is because I've just been playing people. I haven't been doing other bullshit trying to find matches and shit. I've just been finding matches. And when I'm not finding matches, I'm just practicing a combo. That goes by really quick. And then, oh, I'm trying to finish a combo and I get a match. Oh man, I couldn't finish my combo. I got to get a match. So I'm not really thinking about how frustrated I am about like all this other shit that the game might not particularly be good at, because I'm just getting good at the game. You know, there's very little barrier in between your ability to like learn. And what is the thing you need to learn, people? You need to fight people, dude. You just need to fight a whole bunch of people and keep fighting them and find other people with better connections and stuff like that. That's just the way it is. It's designed in a way that makes sense for our current year. Everything in MK1 is not that way online, dude. Everything's like backwards. Everything feels like we went back to something that was like the mid 2010s. And it clearly is that way because they just didn't have the time to implement it in their new engine and all this stuff, you know? Everything regressed. So that's my thought process right now. That's clearly the things that like need to change. I could have several criticisms of like invasions and the gear and all that stuff, but it's all fluffy Barbie dress up bullshit. Like, I think it's neat. I don't mind it in a certain way. The core gameplay loop just needs to be interesting, and I need to be able just to fight people. and have there not be that many obstacles in between. If I'm unlocking things and just doing stuff, yeah, that's awesome. Then great. The casual audience is going to love that. But for me personally, right, and I'm not going to speak for everybody because I know that's going to have to be a huge part of the next Mortal Kombat game. Those things aren't even important to me, dude. The most important thing to me was just getting cool characters that are cool, that are like either guest characters or returning characters, to do cool gameplay stuff, and I get to go online and do that cool gameplay stuff. There were several roadblocks that prevented me from even being able to do that. So yes, they can improve all these other things, but when the core gameplay loop, in my opinion, is compromised, we have a big problem, dude. If it doesn't feel good, if there's like inherent issues with just the way it is, between either cameo usage in comparison to the previous game or whatnot, that's what I want to get changed. And I think the other thing I'll say, MK1 ended up feeling very samey. Everything sort of ended up happening in the exact same ways, just with different characters. If we're talking stories and things like that, or how characters look and how they play, many elements we were expecting to be wildly different, a brand new era, a brand new this, a brand new that. It was not. That was mostly marketing. That was supposed to be the appeal of the game, but as you play the game, you realize it's like, oh, it was kind of just the same thing. Characters just look a little bit different, but it's kind of the same thing. We didn't change eras of Mortal Kombat really at all. We just brought back PS2 characters. MK1 kind of goes down as like the Street Fighter V of the current era Mortal Kombat. But the difference between Street Fighter V is that that game was given ample time and resources and development to become something really good, to become actually a good fighting game by the time it hit its like third, fourth, and final season. The thing is, Street Fighter V also ended up becoming one of the better selling Capcom fighting games over time because they made it way better. They made it actually an appealing product. And what I hate about MK1 now is that if this stuff is true, and if we're like looking at a potential like end of days situation, it doesn't get that opportunity. Does not get that opportunity to sort of like make wild adjustments or fix gameplay stuff or make cameos more fun and more engaging to use, you know? It's just, it gets its typical year and a half dev cycle, and we're moving on because business is business, you know? I think MK does deserve its chance. The only gripe I have is that arguably the best Mortal Kombat game, which is this one, is one of the least interesting games to play in my personal opinion. I'm just saying this wasn't a fun game for me. And as much as I can acknowledge how good it is and how high quality it is, the way it plays, I thought legit was unfun. And it just isn't a game that is fun for me at all. MK1's a more fun game for me. But this is like the ultimate MK game, dude. I just want that to exist with a game that I just end up gelling with. Is a hell of a lot of fun and also looks really good and has content that makes people happy. Because the last time that happened, it was called Mortal Kombat X.